Well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for your interest in spiritual things and specifically the work in Ethiopia. I'm excited to present to you the update from this last trip, which I took in February 1st to the 18th. And I'm going to generally present this to you in the order of the events in which they happened, skipping some of the boring parts like travel. And focusing on people's stories. And then I'll try to give you a flavor for what life is like in Ethiopia, as probably not many of you have been over there. So the flight starts in Dallas or Houston for me. So getting there is the first part of it. But once you're there, it's a 14-and-a-half-hour flight to Doha, Qatar, in that seat. and then Qatar is in the Persian Gulf. Doha is its capital. It's actually a really rich city. Never felt unsafe there. Decided to stay the night this time. I've stayed the night there twice now. The first time was in the airport, and then the hotel, it was much better than the airport. So this is arriving in Qatar late at night, as is always the case. For some reason, I only enter these countries in the middle of the night, but it's just the way the flights line out. But this is the downtown where the hotel was. And it turns out Qatar will subsidize your hotel so that I stayed in that blue building right in the middle. It looks very fancy for $50-ish. I know, and amazing. And much better, again, than the sleeping in the airport. So I did that this year. It was great. And this is the flight from Doha to Addis Ababa. So there's really two main legs to this flight to Ethiopia. Addis Ababa being the capital of Ethiopia. Just to give you bearings on where you're at, the total flight time, if all you had to do was show up and get on the plane, you'd spend about 20 hours in flight. All in all, without the long layover in Doha, 30-ish hours, 25 to 30 hours is kind of the way that goes. The objectives on this trip, we spend a lot of time, actually, the people that have been there, talking about what are we trying to accomplish? We're not on vacation, so what are we trying to do here? And really, it comes down to these three things. That's strengthening churches, equipping preachers, and teaching young people. It involves a lot of travel around the country once you're there. So that's what you're going to see a lot of. This particular trip, we focused a lot on basic Bible teaching for new Christians. And I'll explain more about that once we get deeper into it. You guys may remember that in past years I've focused on James or Philippians, and just all my lessons come from that one book. This year it was Ephesians, but it was from the perspective of how can we help new Christians understand the story of salvation. Some facts about Ethiopia. The country is about 50% literate. So if you think about, that means half the people in the country can't read or write. That's a problem for Bible study, right? On a fundamental level. So a lot of times the way the people, and a lot of these people that cannot read or write are in the villages. They're not in the major cities. They live an agrarian lifestyle where reading and writing is not necessarily, except for Bible study. So they're in these villages. They are taught the Bible by a preacher. And there are some countryside preachers that will spend all of their week traveling from village to village just teaching. And there will be local men that sort of hold the worship services there in the village, but the main teaching will come from this preacher that's traveling from village to village, so the people will work certain areas. And I'll introduce some of those guys to you in a minute. Bunch of languages in Ethiopia. And there's 85 active languages in this country. And you got to, my mind just exploded when I figured that out. 85 active languages? How is that even possible? It's because people walk everywhere. So you may live and die your whole life in this little bitty circle, Everyone speaks your native tongue, so who cares? That's what you speak. And it just doesn't proliferate, language doesn't proliferate like it does here because of our internet connection, because of our easy travel, our vacations. None of that happens there. And I'm speaking in generalities. There are people that travel all over the place who are Ethiopian, but I'm speaking in generalities. So some of the languages that we run into are listed there. Actually, Amharic is the national language, and you can see that that's only 30% of the country speaks that language. So most of the time when we're speaking to a crowd, our translator is translating into Amharic. And if there are people in this general vicinity that don't speak Amharic, then there's another translator that translates from Amharic to something else. And so sometimes there are two translators. I'll show you that in just a minute too. Some of the other languages we run into are Kambata, Haidea, Sadamo, and sometimes Walatinia, which we ran into this time. Active, your life expectancy in Ethiopia is 65 years. Life expectancy in the United States, per my Google search this afternoon, 78. So another 13 years you get for being here in the United States. So agony. So how are you going to use it? 135 million people. That's a lot, especially when you consider that the size of Ethiopia is only about 1.6 times the size of Texas. And yet there's about, I think, almost 4 times as many people. And everyone's trying to live off the land. So you can imagine like 4 times as many neighbors, and everybody's trying to grow the crops that they're going to live on in their backyard. That's a lot. But lucky for them, Ethiopia is blessed to have very rich soil, a wet season, a dry season. It is the best place to grow crops, which is good because they need a lot of them. These are the main areas that we were active in. And if you can, I tried to, as best I could, no one get a scale out here, but I think that's pretty close to the size of Texas versus Ethiopia. And you can see generally what we were operating within is somewhere between, I don't know, Dallas and Laredo-ish. However, the travel times are a little different in Ethiopia. So Addis Ababa is the capital of the country. We fly into Addis Ababa, and then we drive. So this drive was our planned route. We were going to go from Addis to Sodo in one day, except as things go in Ethiopia, nothing goes according to plan, and we didn't get our rental car at the hotel in time. So we didn't get to start until like 11:30 the day of our leaving. And so we only made it to Hawassa. And it took us every bit of 8.5 hours to get to Hawassa from Addis. This is one of the reasons why. So this is Elias, our driver. I'll get a better picture of him in just a second. But we are now attempting in Addis Ababa to cross an intersection. There are no lights. So this is just kind of how it goes. You just go. And then hopefully these cars stop. Some of them don't. Slam on the brakes. You keep going. And then this red truck's about this, yeah. It's just, that's just normal. So that's one reason. Here's another reason. We're kind of in a sub-town now at this point, and this car is just blocking traffic. We just stopped. And that's pretty standard. I think I did a math calculation. I was messaging the family while I was away. It's like we went this far in this much time, and I did the math, and I was like, we averaged 20 miles an hour. That is crazy. Also on the roads, you're sharing them with motorcycles carrying any number of people. Very rarely will it have one person on it. This is 4 people on one motorcycle, and you're like, there is no way you can get another person on there. Watch that. Boom. 5 people. I actually did see a motorcycle with 6 people on it, but it was driving the other direction. I couldn't get a picture fast enough. It would have been like the Abominable Snowman or Sasquatch or something. So I didn't get it, but I will get it. That's my mission for the next trip. Far down the list from those other objectives we were talking about, but certainly important. One guy on a motorcycle, but he is carrying a bed. So he gets a break, I guess. This is the Ethiopian minivan. You see a bunch of these running around. Actually, I counted 13 people on this wagon. This is a very typical way for people to travel. This is like the pickup truck of the countryside. There are two, you can barely see it, but there are two horses or mules pulling this cart, and there's a pile of people. And when there's not a pile of people, there's a pile of stuff. And then other things on the road, livestock in all shapes and sizes, grazing on the side of the road. They belong to somebody. I guess he'll come get them at some point. Don't know how that works. Cows here. Sometimes they're full-on blocking the road, and they get the priority, because if you run one of these guys over, there's going to be like an act of Congress to figure out how to litigate that thing. These little three-wheeled vehicles are the bane of my existence. They are a necessary evil over there, but they're just infuriating. They can't really see behind them or on the sides very much, so they just sort of just move forward, and then they'll just fill whatever void there is on the highway or on the road. If that's an oncoming traffic, so be it. Side of the road, whatever. And so they're called bajajes, and they're everywhere. We'll see more of them as we click through here, undoubtedly. On the countryside roads, we're on these switchbacks in the mountains, and people drive in the middle, right in the middle, right down the center stripe. Lanes are not a thing. And this guy is the one that navigates all of it for us. This is Elias. I'm doing fine. I see his smiling face, Love that guy. He keeps us out of trouble. He's like an Ethiopian Jackie Chan. Love that guy. This is Lowell. I did him dirty with this picture, but he's a really nice guy. He is the son of one of the key men over there that helps us, Zerahun, who helps us coordinate a lot of our trips. He's a fantastic preacher. His boys, he's dropping off Bibles for us to take down to south part of the country. This is the Rift Valley. I've heard about it, and I never really put my finger on it, and it's kind of hard to identify when you're in the country. It's just whenever you're hot and sticky and dusty and there's mosquitoes everywhere, you're in the Rift Valley. And then you pop out of it again, and you're in some elevation, and it feels good. We were in it. In Mojo here, picking up Maru. Now, this guy is going to be a kind of a key man in the story. I'll tell you a little bit more about him in just a minute. Riding in the car with Maru is like... however long your car ride is, that's how long the Bible study is. He's just a curious soul. You know what I mean? Mara's a quirky guy. He's very lovable, has a bunch of questions, ask a bunch of thought-provoking questions, or at least he thinks they're thought-provoking. He's a squirrely guy. But he would always ask me, like, this is why I am Hark Bible says this. What does your Bible say in this verse? It says the same thing. It says it in English, but sometimes those translations kind of help illuminate certain passages, and so he's really curious about that. So Maru was living in a town called Adama, which... but I got to tell you this story. Adama is right outside of Addis Ababa. Now, Addis is the capital city, right? It's where law and order exists. But outside of Addis is a little bit of a different story. I'll show you some other maps in a second that show you there's a bunch of dividing lines in Addis. And at first, through our Western eyes, we might think these are states. And in a way, they kind of are, but they're really tribal lines. Well, Maru was living in Adama, which is Oromo. That's not Amharic. That's not the Amhara region. That is Oromo region. And Oromo, if you'll remember from the languages slide, was the majority of the country speaks Oromo. That's because they're Oromian. and they live in the Oromo area, and there are tribal lines that you don't cross sometimes. There was all this political unrest in the country, largely because Oromia didn't feel like they were equally represented in the country. That led to political unrest, which led to just, frankly, unrest and a lot of criminal activity. Well, Maru had to leave his home because he's not naturally Oromo. He's not from Oromia. So he was worried about his life. His brother was killed, and so he moved his family to Yalo. Yalo's on the map I'm about to show you in just a second, which is a long way away. So we're like, Maru, why did you go to Yalo of all places? I mean, it's pretty, I guess, but why go there? He knew some people there. That's going to be key to the story, so just remember that. And then he moved back to Adama whenever it got stabilized. So on our way down, we ate lunch in Zwei. I'm just going to show you some food pictures along the way here, just because. This is fish, bottom right-hand side of the screen. And that rolled up thing that looks like a tortilla does not taste at all like a tortilla. That is injera. That's their kind of a spongy bread. It's made from what we would call love grass. Thank you, Lynn. It's called teff over there. And it's fermented and kind of baked. And so it ends up being the vehicle through which you deliver the food to your mouth. And so I'll get some pictures of that in a minute. There's a black pot there with some kind of soup or gravy or whatever and meat in there. That's called tibs, and I think this was beef. Sometimes they make goat tibs or whatever. It's just meat pieces. And then you'll notice on that plate, plate on the top left side of the screen looks like French fries. They call those French fries. This is our trip. The first day, Google said it was supposed to take 5 hours, took 8.5. And then we still had to go somewhere from there. But it was a good thing we stopped in Awasa because these two guys, Tesfaye and Sammy, we were supposed to meet up with. Tesfaye moved from this area to Atlanta, Georgia. Started going to a church in Atlanta, Georgia, where Philip Shoemate preaches. Philip taught Tesfaye the truth. He was baptized. Tesfaye said, I need to bring this message back to Awasa. So he connected Philip Shoemate with Sammy in Awasa. Now, Sammy is a Pentecostal elder of a church at 34, but very calm demeanor, very studious. Sammy's position was sort of indicative of what we're going to run into later in the trip, which is I'm frustrated with the idea that I can't just follow the Bible. I've got all this infrastructure. I've got all these church bosses, these people that are telling me what to preach, when to preach it, how to preach it. And if it doesn't agree with what the Bible says, well, then I just have to take their word for it. There's got to be another way. Enter Tesfaye. It's just interesting how this happens, right? And so Sammy said, we want you to come to our church and teach. Just teach Bible lessons. We want to hear that. And so Randy was able to go back there after I left. This was our kind of initial meeting. We had breakfast with these guys, or coffee with them in the morning. And then Randy was able to circle back up with them. And Philip Shoemate from Atlanta is in regular communication with these guys too. So day 2, we started off towards Yalo and Gesa, which are those last 2 dots on the bottom left. You can't read that. Went 2 hours to go pick up 2 more guys in the town of Sodo. This is what Sodo looks like, kind of built into the hillside, into the mountains out there. This is a market that's starting to get populated. They were about to have a market day, I think, the next day. This is Demika and Tishala. Tishala, I've shown you guys his picture and name several times. He's a translator for us, has been for several years. Love that guy and his family. And Demika has always kind of struck me as a grouchy old preacher from the countryside. Got to know him a lot better this trip along with Maru. we spent several days and nights together. But Demica is one of those countryside preachers I was telling you about. So they travel from place to place, making sure that they just try to impart as much Bible wisdom as possible in these countryside towns where most people are not literate. So day 1, 8.5 hours. Day 2, another 8 hours. Look at the distance difference. We slowed way down when we got down to that south part of the country, which is also very typical. This is I took a picture of this on the way because this is typically how buildings are built. So they have these eucalyptus trees that are long and straight, kind of like our pine trees, except they don't need to be very big. I mean, just that big around, and they'll just stack those things up. And then they're going to cover that with mud. Then they'll come back when it dries and skim coat it. Then they'll come back when it dries and paint it. And that'll last a long time. I'll show you something else here in a minute. This is pretty much anytime you pass water, it's a huge community center. There's people fishing down there, washing clothes, watering cattle, bathing, whatever they're doing. They're all doing it together, all down in there in the river. It has a lot of context when you start reading these passages in the Bible, right? About going to wells. It's just the place where people have to visit every single day. This is the country in which we're passing. So I mentioned these switchbacks up and down these mountains. In this area of the country, I hadn't been here before, but we're going up, we're going down, we're going up, we're going down. It's 2,500 to 3,000 feet of elevation difference, and you might do that 4 times trying to go from one place to another. It's just where the road, I guess, was convenient to build. And then here's the edge of the road, and this pile of rock is supposed to keep you on the mountain versus rolling down it. Anywhere along the way, anywhere you go, no matter how far out in the middle of the country you think you are, there are people walking, and they're taking livestock with them, sometimes very heavy loads, and they're just walking to who knows where. I mean, you didn't pass a town anytime recently, but they live somewhere along the way, and they're using the road accordingly, but they're walking. And that's a big part of lifestyle in Ethiopia. Occasionally, there'll be people selling fruit on the side of the road. We usually pick that up. This is like a replacement for Buc-ee's, on the long trips. And this banana looks terrible. It tastes awesome. And this is the roadside facilities. In case you needed to stop, there might be a hole in the ground. Most of the time, there's not, but this was just a rare occurrence out there. We stopped in Yalo, finally, and this is Maru on the left, and in the center, you see a very proud young man that is now a new pharmacist, and that is Maru's son. So I had to stop in and say hello to him. Somehow Elias gets us to these places, far-flung as they may be, without the use of a paper map or GPS. And rarely will he pull over and say something in Amharic, like, where are we going? And they'll tell him. But without using the phone a friend Ethiopian help, he usually ends up being there in the right spot. Now, to get to the specific house, we typically will meet some random person on the side of the road who will drive a motorcycle to the place where we're supposed to be going. And that's what we're doing right here. We're following Asnaka, who I didn't know at the time, to the place where we dropped off Demica and to Shala, and where we were going to have the program the next day. Meanwhile, Elias and Randy and I said, let's go to the hotel. We're tired. It's been a long day. We passed by this giant river and one of the largest, as I'm told, hydroelectric power plants in Ethiopia. And ironically, the hotel we were going to had neither power nor water. It is what it is. This is, let me see if this plays. No? Oh, here we go. So just a bit of the travel. This is pretty typical for, I'd say, at least a third of this 8-hour day. We're just bouncing on the side of a mountain, wrapping around there. Beautiful views, but it's tough. Randy's getting up there. Sorry, Randy, if you're watching this. But it's got to be rough on his body. Rachel knows. This is a Yalo hotel where we stayed. It looked very pretty. Again, no power or water. So what I'll typically do is bring a flashlight that I can kind of point up at the ceiling and then do Bible study or whatever I need to do before we go out. And I noticed, this was the next morning, right before we were going to eat breakfast and leave, that I had a friend with me. Can you see it? How about now? How about now? So he was living behind my headboard. But I don't know. It didn't bother me as much. I thought whatever he's eating back there, I probably don't want to see either. So this is the hotel breakfast, pretty typical fare, Ethiopian breakfast. This is chipsa and furfur and sausage, and then the bread they call dabo over there. Chipsa and furfur is like it's like that injera stuff, probably from the day before that they fry and like marinate in different things, so it tastes different. But it's pretty not bad. Here's the juice that they typically will make available. Also, it almost always has something different in it, like chai or like ginger or something. And you never know what kind of water they use to make it, so we typically stay away from it. I drank this; it was good, and it didn't kill me. This is the Gesa compound where we dropped Demika and Tishala off the night before, and we actually moved out of the Spider Hotel into this place, and we stayed here for 2 days. We didn't have any water or power in the other place, so we figured we'll just stay here with the preachers and enjoy their company. I'm so glad we did. It was a really good spot. Higher in elevation, so it was cooler at night, but a nice little compound otherwise. We would not have found it had we not followed Asnaka on the motorcycle, but I'm glad we did. So we did our next 2 days here. This was a beauty parlor or like a hair salon that all the stuff got taken out of, and then we moved our chairs in, and this was our home for the next couple of days. We just opened the doors for airflow. And these guys, you never know who you're teaching necessarily. You can kind of ask, and they might give a general sense of who you're teaching, but we don't know. And come to find out, there are several visitors in the audience here that we just didn't know about. But it was fine. It wouldn't have changed the message that we taught. We just, didn't have the context. So we'd stay at this compound overnight, and the preachers all stayed there too. And we'd all hang out and eat together, and it was really a nice environment. This is my room. So pretty simple. No AC, no restroom in the room. There's the community restroom that's around the corner and behind a building, kind of an outhouse type of a situation. And then there's my door. It's got a latch on the outside and the inside. I guess someone could have locked me in there if they wanted to. Okay, here's Dr. Degu. So Maru, when he moved to Yalo, I was like, why did he move to Yalo? This is the reason. He knew Dr. Degu. So Dr. Degu was a Pentecostal. Maru taught him, and he converted to New Testament Christianity. And then he started going house to house and just sort of teaching as many people as he could. And so he taught Asnaka. That's the way you say that name. It looks like a snake or something, but it's Asnaka. And then Ayala's standing next to him. But taught these guys, and these are like church leaders. Asnaka was actually a prophet, a so-called prophet at a Pentecostal church. So the idea here is that God is speaking directly to Asnaka, and he is then telling the congregation what God tells them to do, right? And in many cases, we actually talked to some people about this, or they were saying, the prophet stands up and he's going to deliver a message. He's like, do you want me to preach to you from the Bible or from myself? And the congregation will say, from yourself. And so that's the situation of the local church here. I don't want to paint a broad brush that that's the way all Pentecostals view the world, right? But that's the kind of situation that we're up against here, is just the Bible is not necessarily the thing that gives you God's word. It's a person. So we had to kind of talk through that. And so Asnaka had already come to that realization. He's like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. He's now teaching and preaching the truth to the best of his ability, but a recent convert, and frankly, unfamiliar with a lot of the scripture. And I bring this up just to say that, like, there's a lot of people that were in church leadership roles in these areas that don't know their Bible. That's okay, right? We need to just fix that. But that's where a lot of these people were at. There's always a bunch of children around. I don't know who these belong to, but they were fun. And I think they belonged to the lady who owned the facility that we were in. And Randy brought some bubbles. They thought that was the greatest thing ever. And then this little girl's holding a My Little Pony, I think I brought to her. There were no restaurants in the area because we're way out in the countryside, and none that we could visit. So Elias ended up cooking dinner for us every night. So he's a Ethiopian Jackie Chan, and he's also a chef, and he's a driver. He's a crazy guy. And he cooked on this bed of coals, which typically you would just warm up coffee on. And so it wasn't ideal, but there's him and Tishala. We're in the reception area of the hotel right now, I guess, and they're making it there. And then this is Elias. That's Demica, the grouchy preacher, playing with bubbles. I love it. And this is part of the culture, is just like they're diligent, right? They don't have much. They're in connection with their own need, which is the reason I think they're so God-focused, is because they don't have all these distractions that tell them they're okay like we do. You know, so we look at these pictures, we're like, man, how could someone live like that? Well, I don't know. Spiritually, I would say they're in a better position than we are. Think about that. And there's just this kind of playfulness about their culture, which I really like too. It's openness. You know, they're willing to listen to people. I don't know. I like it a lot. Day 2 in the Gesa compound, we're teaching the same group of people. There's a few extras in here. I noticed there was a few women that showed up on Saturday that weren't able to be there on Friday. Come to find out, I wanted to see. Okay, so we get to a Q&A session, and you just never know what they're saying. Man, I wish you could hear the audio on this one, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's Esnaka, you can see his body language. It's very intense. And I'm thinking, we offended this guy. And you just never know, right? Because they go on for a long time. And then the translator's like, okay. And in this case, he said, Esnaka is very glad you're here. And I'm like, what? That is not what I thought he was going to say. And but he's pointing back at this man who I found out later is Biena, sitting there with his arms crossed, who also looks upset, but he wasn't. And he's from a local Pentecostal church. 2 other ladies there from Lutheran church around the corner, and they just came to listen. And Snaka, he's saying, we don't hear preaching like this. We don't hear any teaching like this. And that scares me when I hear that, because I'm like, what did I just make up, you know? But it's just, they don't hear teaching from the Bible, as the Bible as an authority in their life. They hear people telling them what to do, and it always doesn't make sense. It doesn't mesh. One person says one thing, someone else, just like human teaching, right? You can go on YouTube and say, how should I live my life? And you're going to get a lot of answers. But none of those are going to be from God, right? And so, Esnaka is making the point. He's like, look, these guys are here from the U.S., and they don't... They don't want anything from us. And I'm not sure that's the only gauge of truth, but it helps. So Biena got up. He was a visitor. And he just echoed the same comments. He just said, I'm so glad you're here. His teaching is new. He's considering a lot of things. He had a lot of questions. Continued to ask Demica and Tishala questions. And we're going to talk about him more in just a second. Here's y'all in the front row. Dr. Degu's sitting right next to him. so that study was over. Then we moved to Yalo, which is a very nearby town, to do Sunday worship at this location. This was previously a Pentecostal church, and the church was paying the rent for them to be here and telling Asnaka what to teach every Sunday. And when he converted, he said, I'm just going to teach the Bible from now on. And of course, the church stopped paying for the rent. So they're working through how to make that work. We left them a little bit of money to keep the rent going at this location. But we had a good crowd on Sunday, a bunch of kids piled around the windows, trying to figure out what the crazy Americans were going to say. There's Maru in the middle. We got questions here at this assembly, and we found out that both Ayala and Dr. Degu had wives who were staunchly Pentecostal and Lutheran, respectively. And when they converted to New Testament Christianity, their wives left them. In many cases, conversion to the truth involves leaving something behind, right? And sometimes you don't get to pick what that is. And then we also got a question I didn't expect, which is, okay, we're talking about marriage, divorce, and remarriage, so it kind of got us on this topic. And they said, okay, what if we convert a man who has 5 wives? Like, not just 2, he has 5? It seems like it's very specific, but they didn't tell me like who we were talking to. Could have been someone in the crowd, I don't know. But they were just asking like, okay, he's got 5 wives. Should we even try to convert the wives? So, like, yeah, truth is for everybody. So let's talk through that. But I mean, these are the types of situations you find yourself in, especially the further out in the countryside you get, you know. After church, as is the case, they need to feed us. So they brought us to Asnaka's house. So we walked around the corner. Randy did a good job of navigating the terrain and steps and animals. And on the porch, the ladies cooked. The lady that's closest to us is Asnaka's wife. She's cooking some fish on the porch there, which anytime I'm eating fish, it's suspect, right? But in Ethiopia, it's more suspecter. But it was not bad. It was actually really good. I did eat that. This is some cabbage. This gravy-looking stuff is a puree from beans. It does not taste the way you're imagining it right now. It's called shiro, and it's pretty common there. And then, of course, injera is the delivery vehicle. There's the fish that she made. Very good. She's pouring coffee, which is a must at every meal, sometimes in between meals. And it's like a little espresso shot. It's super thick, straight coffee. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? He is so sad, long-faced the whole time, just like you, my friend. That's exactly. But he has malaria. Yeah. And I guess you can be up walking around if you have malaria. I don't know. And he wasn't happy about it. Now, Maru is feeding Ayala, if you can see that, with his hands. And so he's not going to feed him his whole meal like this, but this is a custom. They will do this. And it's like sharing love is what the Ethiopian word just means if you directly translate it. And the idea is like Maru has his food, Ayala doesn't. Ayala, eat some food out of my hand, you know? That's the way that goes. So next time you get to a restaurant and you get your food before everybody else, keep it in mind. Open mind, feed your friend. This is Vienna. I just had to sneak a picture because he's asking Dr. Degu questions, and Degu's answering him. When we left here, Degu called us and said that Vienna was baptized. It's cool. The kids are always awesome. They're easy to make laugh. They like engaging with you. And so I usually take pictures with them before we take off. And Ayala jumped in there with his crazy cheese. Okay, so now we were going from Yalo to Sodo, about 3.5 hours down in this section, just trying to give you context on where we're at in the country. More roadblocks, more Bible studies with Maru. I love him. And more fruit on the side of the road from these kids. I got to be like 7 or 8 years old out there in the middle of the highway, just selling fruit for their family. Here's a full-blown market day. Everyone will bring their wares. Now, a lot of times in certain places within the country, everyone's growing the same kind of produce. I went to a market day one time, and there was just nothing but avocados everywhere. It's like all the sellers of avocados in the world came to that one location, and none of the buyers came there, I have to imagine, like, who's buying avocados? They're dropping off of every tree you see. And this is the first shower I saw in 3.5 days. It was awesome. When you travel in Ethiopia, you travel with the windows down, and you're going through the Rift Valley, and it's just dusty and sweaty, and you're a special kind of gross by the time you get done with that travel. And so showers are coveted. This is breakfast, and you probably can't see this, but there are chicken wings on our plate, which is a weird breakfast, admittedly, but I was glad to see it because I recognized it. And so we ate chicken wings for breakfast, and the boys liked it too. And then we get out to the car, this is not that unusual either. Elias is working on the car. It's broken somehow, some way. The rental vehicles, there's not a company. It's a person you rent a vehicle from. Hey, can I borrow your vehicle? Yeah, I'll charge you this much. Okay, fine. And it might break down on the way. Okay, that's fine. And so Elias is a mechanic, super capable guy, in addition to the rest of his resume of talents. In Sodo, we were going to be teaching at a house where the church meets in that area. And this is what a neighborhood street looks like. It's just a road. Sometimes there'll be piles of, construction material or something laying out there, a bunch of eucalyptus or some wood, piles of dirt or gravel. You just got to navigate around them. This one is relatively clear. And this is a little house where this church meets. Super still, no air, lots of heat in this area. Most Americans would melt there. But these guys had gathered to do Bible study. I've got a song here. I don't know if it's going to play. Let's see how it goes. So that's Gabayu that was leading singing there. And they do the singing to kind of just welcome people in, I kind of feel like. They start their almost every assembly by singing, and people just start showing up. So you notice some empty chairs there. In the previous screen, some of those chairs are filled in, and so that was a later picture. But that's just typically how it goes. These ladies showed up along with some other guys, and then they were visitors from a denominational church in the area, and they were just coming to just listen. They had a lot of questions. Sometimes we'd answer the question, and they'd say, doesn't satisfy me. So this is after we do our normal presentation, right? I teach, Randy teaches, I teach, Randy teaches. So we're 4 lessons in at this moment. Call it 2.5, 3 hours or something like that. And then the Q&A starts. And like in the case of this lady, she's like, I want to hear more. So we did a whole nother lesson on her questions. And that's just typically what will happen. And the questions could be anything. On your topic or otherwise. More kid pictures. These guys are just awesome. They love American pennies. I don't know if you can see what that. No, you can't see that. One of that kid's holding up is an American penny that I gave him. Let's see. Okay, so then we went, the next day we were teaching in a small town called Koye, which is near Sodo. So about an hour and a half away, one direction. We get there, teach a little bit, then come back. This is an overturned vehicle. As far as I could tell, no one was seriously injured except for the Coca-Cola bottles that he was transporting. It was Coca-Cola bottle carnage all over the road, probably avoiding some livestock, as is evident right here in the middle of this picture. This is the road to Koye. I think this village is technically Koye, but we ended up outside of this village. And so turning onto a more narrow road from the main road, and then a more narrow road from that road, and then a more narrow road from that road. And eventually, I mean, it's obvious that no cars typically pass down this road, you know, and the earth is sort of reclaiming this road. But people are walking and taking livestock down this way. Finally, we end up at the house of Gabayu. And again, Elias never asked for directions. He just showed up there magically. This is his house. Now, this is one of those houses I was telling you about, built by eucalyptus, slapped together with mud. This thing has been around. I asked Gabayu, how long have you been in this house? He said, this was my parents' house. So Gabayu's probably in his mid-50s, late 50s, and so this is his parents' house. This thing has been around a long time. Probably had a lot of repairs as time goes on. Okay, now this is one of those situations where Randy is speaking here. Tishala, standing up in the white shirt, is translating to Amharic. Some of the people in the audience probably understand him. And then Gabayu is translating into Walatinya. So when it goes from me to you to somebody else in 3 different languages, yeah, that is a lot of coordination. And the translators have told me in times past, and some of you translated from Spanish, English to Spanish, Spanish to English, it takes a lot of mental energy, right, to make that work. You're trying to capture the essence of what someone is trying to convey. And that's tough. That's tough work. So I don't have a lot of confidence when we go through 2 translators. So we have to keep the message really straightforward. No word pictures, no illustrations beyond, maybe a story or something, but you can't get cute with your language. It's just something you got to learn as you go through it. More kids. Silly. And then when we're out in the countryside, we're trying to get back into the main cities. As is often the case, Ethiopians need rides, because if it's not that, it's walking. And so we grabbed Mogus and Zacchaeus. Those are the 2 preachers. These 2 guys have been preaching in Soto and Bodidi for a long time now. Super faithful young men working here. Gabayu, the guy's house we were just at, he's an older preacher. He's been helping them in their Bible knowledge, encouraging them. Randy's been encouraging them. Wubishet, who's a great guy, my translator on my first very trip, who just passed away. He taught these guys. And so, in many ways, like their work in Soto and Bodidi is was a result from his work. And so, what's good about this for me, now I've been going for just 5 years now, but seeing the growth, right? Seeing, seeing God's kingdom grow the way it's supposed to. More food. Tibbs on the right. You may have guessed that. We've said it twice now. This is cabbage on the left, so that green stuff. And it's like a cooked spinach almost, but it's real buttery and it's pretty spicy. That stuff that looks like bread around it is not bread in the way you would think of. It's actually, it's kind of a theme with the food. It's like it looks one way, it tastes a totally different way. This is... This bread-looking stuff is called inset, and it is made from fermented banana root, false banana tree root. You would not have guessed that, would you? They compress it, and they kind of cook it, and it makes this kind of rubbery wafer thing. It's pretty good. And then that powdery stuff is called mitmita, and it's very spicy, and this is a lethal dose. Okay, Soto to Adama was a long stretch, so that's coming up here. And it takes us 10 hours, partly because it's a long way and it's bumpy and dusty and traffic and all that stuff. But it also took us a long time because we needed to make some stops along the way. And one of those was this water project that I told many of you about before I left. And so water in the country, I've shown you pictures like this before. These are oil cans that they use to import oil into the country. They get repurposed to be water cans. So this is where you would drink your water out of, is this oil can. You see them all over the place. Kids are carting them around typically in donkey carts. Sometimes they're moving them in wagons. This girl's probably, she can't be 10 years old. And those are 2 big 5-gallon containers. So that's a lot of weight she's putting on that cart and pushing around to who knows where. But that's pretty typical. And then you'll see older ladies. It's a lot of the women that are moving this stuff and the kids, mainly because the men are out in the field working, growing crops and whatnot. And so you'll see ladies with them on their back, and they've got a rope that kind of goes around their head on a pad, and they're just kind of using that as leverage to carry that thing back home. But this is a daily occurrence. Happens all the time. But in some areas of the country, you just can't get there. It's too far. So if you're dedicated, if you're the water getter, you're not going to school, you're not learning a craft or a trade, you're just getting water for the family. It's your only job every day. So, enter Project 912. It sounds like an organization. It's not really. It's like 2 families up in Lubbock. Sorry. So these families, thanks. Appreciate you. Yeah. So these families actually heard about a water project need in the Congo and said, well, we can do something about that. So they started raising money. They did bake sales. They did garage sales. And they raised enough money to do this Congo water well dig. And then so I know some of these families, Jenny and I do through camp, and they started asking us, hey, are there any projects that we can do in Ethiopia? Because we'd love to fund another project, but we just did this one in Congo. We don't really know. So before last year's trip with the ladies, I ended up talking with Zerahun, some other guys I'll show you in just a second. Hey, is this feasible? They said, yes, it is. So I told Project 912. They held a concert in their backyard with some just friends that, are very musically inclined. They raised $10,000 from this concert in the backyard. Then they raised another $3,000 from a bank, and they were just, wherever they can get money, they were raising money for this Ethiopian well project. And so this is Big Z. It's easy to call him that. His name's Zerahun. He answers to Z, or Big Z. And he's big for an Ethiopian guy. But I asked him last trip, hey, should we look into this? And he said, and then where would I start, even if we did? And he said, well, my brother-in-law, Shefra, who was actually driving me last year for a portion of the trip, he works for a well drilling company. Turns out it's a nonprofit that drills wells for other nonprofits that can raise funds to actually drill the well. And so they have all the heavy equipment. They have an Ethiopian staffed construction company in town, or in the country, that's licensed and permitted, and they can navigate all the government procedures to get that done. So he introduced me to Haptamu. And Haptamu, we spent about a year kind of working through the government regulations, feasibility studies, et cetera, to figure out where are the best 2 locations to drill a well. And this guy, I don't know who he is. He ended up in a lot of our pictures. I didn't want to leave him out. He's a photo bomber. This is well site number 1. This was this area in Waragashara, that was determined was in a high degree of need, and this is the well drilling day that I was there for, where they're pushing the pipe down. We hit water at 63 meters. That's important. 80 meters is the maximum. You could go 80 meters, not hit water this time of year. That's a dry hole. You got to find a different one. That would be more construction costs, more time, etc. We have to drill during the dry season because when it's wet, the water table's higher, and you don't know if the water's going to be there in the dry season when you need it. So they drill during the dry season. This land gets publicly dedicated. I won't spend a bunch of time on this, but I just want you to know it's legit from the eyes of the government. They're looking at this land as it's dedicated for public use. There's a maintenance fund that's set up. There are people that are designated as kind of like the property owners association, for lack of a better term, that sort of control this well. These are the village elders. They make up one part of this committee. The other part is a government organization. And then the third part is the technical support, which is the well drilling company itself. So this is Waragashara. This man here is actually a church member, and he is very close by at a congregation called the Zato Wera Boya congregation. Just rolls right off the tongue. The church meets in his house, and we'll be in his house in just a second. This is the second well site. I wasn't able to make it to this site. It's not very far away. It's in the same district. Just generally, as you think about, well, how are these people surviving without this water? Well, in the dry season, sometimes it's not very available at all. But sometimes the government will bring trucks out and deliver potable water to areas that are underserved. But when that water's out, it's out. And so you get some that day or you don't get some that day. Otherwise, you borrow from your neighbors. It's a very community-oriented group. If you didn't have your community, your neighbors, you just die. You just don't have any other options. So they rely upon each other. The other option is you can buy it from retailers who will sell you water. You don't know whether it's potable or not potable. They're telling you it's potable, but how do you know? You could get giardia or something from that water. You just don't know. So you buy it and you roll the dice. You can also add these water tablets from the pharmacy. If you can find a pharmacy and you can find the tablets, you can buy those and add them, and that'll kill a lot of the parasites and things that are in there. They also dig shallow wells. They told me about this, and it's crazy. They'll get down in the hole and they'll shovel it out. But when you hit water, I don't know if you noticed, but it was spraying out of the hole, right? So there's situations where you're down in the hole digging, and it will collapse on you, or it'll fill up with water fast enough where it kills the guys down in the bottom of the hole. So it's not an ideal situation, to say the least. So because of that, they will only go about 20 meters down. That's still like 60 feet. That's a long way under the ground. You couldn't climb out of that hole. So anyway, they do that, but shallow wells also have the same problem that surface water has, which is pollutants. About 38% is all of the people in this area are served with potable water from the government's perspective. So these two wells are super important to these people. This is the gentleman that I circled a second ago. The church meets in this house. We went up there, and of course they had to feed us. And his granddaughter was very excited to show us her homework. She's in school in that area, very proud of it. This is about the location of the well. This is about 12 minutes south of Durrami, according to Google, just about 4 kilometers. We went up to go see Tishala because he lives in Durrami. Tishala wasn't there, but his family was. And so this is Zerahun on the left. And he's talking to Kababwa, Tishala's wife, and he's saying, hey, we really don't have time to eat. We just wanted to say hello to you and wanted to move on, see the baby. And there he is. So thank you very much. He said, okay, here's the food. So we had to eat again. And so we did. Didn't want to offend Kababwa. So we leave Durrami, which is that orange star, and traveled back to Adama. Now, at the very top of the screen is Addis Ababa, so we're almost back to the capital. Here's the eucalyptus trees being transported to some construction site, another Ethiopian minivan. And this is sugar cane, another crop that they grow in the area. You'll see people walking around with the sugar cane and just kind of chewing on it. Usually their teeth are really brown. It's like a Colgate commercial. But they will travel with these, bound up crops on the side of the road. And you can see these guys are helping their donkeys up the hill. Pretty common as well. So this is another reason it takes so long to get places. We had to actually sidetrack to try to find fuel. You see all these Bajajes waiting on the side of the road. Believe it or not, this is the line to the gas station. Yeah. It just keeps going. The vehicle that we are in at this moment is a diesel, and not every place that has gas has diesel, so we didn't have to stop at that one, thank goodness. Got back to Adama. Adama is at a lower elevation. It's very hot and sticky. It also has a bunch of mosquitoes. This mosquito net is not for looks. There were a lot of mosquitoes in my room that night. In Adama, we're back at Maru's house. This is where Maru lived and had to leave and then came back to. Okay, so this is Maru's house. As far as I know, the church that meets at his house continued meeting there when his family had moved out of Oromia. And this is his wife, Rosa, and his daughter. We'll talk about more in just a second. This is the small structure that Maru has built on his compound, as they call it, in his backyard, basically, for the church to meet in. And some of these people are church members. Some of them are visiting for the day. We met with two of the people in the audience. One was Aklilu, who helps Maru with his teaching. Aklilu has a 5-year-old son who needed heart surgery. So we left him some money to kind of help with medical expenses to get that done. He's waiting on the Doctors Without Borders to show up in order to do the surgery. But until that time, he's just sort of waiting for what date they will allow. And then this is Deborah. Deborah is a daughter of Maru, and she needed ovarian surgery. You just kind of run across people with these medical needs. They don't have insurance. And so when they have a medical need, they just wait until they have enough money to do the medical procedure, no matter how emergency it might be. And so Deborah's in that position. She's got some sort of issue. I don't even know if I could figure out what it was if I asked, a translation issue. But she's got ovarian surgery coming up. Here at Maru's house, we taught on the back porch. We had that room got really, really hot, as it typically does. So we taught there in the morning, had a break for lunch, and then we taught on the back patio for the rest of it. I just had a picture of this. This is an Ethiopian hayride. I don't know if they meant that way, but the next day we went to Sunday worship at Wanji Gerfesa. This is pretty close to Adama. I've been to this place many times before. The preacher's name is also Asnaka. It's kind of interesting. A lot of the same names. But I'm seeing this congregation grow. These are significantly more people than I've seen in years past, which is good. One of the church members is a beekeeper, so he brought us some honey. And I think this is the thing that really messed me up. I was doing really good up until this point, eating all the Ethiopian food, doing good. This is the day before I leave, and I ate this and some other stuff. I don't know whether it was this or the other stuff, but it messed me up pretty good. So in Addis Ababa, the following day, this is the day that I'm leaving the country, we stopped by Mesfin's house to say hello to his kids. Rachel was there. We went by Mesfin's house when this little boy was just born. He was just tiny. And now he's walking around wearing my sunglasses. So it's cool to see those kids grow. Also, we went to the Kotabe congregation. Remember that new location for the Kotabe congregation? Inside of this big condominium building, this 10-story building, the church is going to be located on the second floor of this, and it's still a construction site, as you can see. There's more construction materials. It may look like this, frankly, for the next 5 to 7 years. That's just the way it goes. But this is the front door to the church. But they've done what they can with the hallway outside of it. And this looks massively different, doesn't it? I mean, the last time we were in here was a concrete box. So they've fixed a lot of this, and it was a very nice place to meet. You see the American guy on the front row there is Jordan Holland. I don't have a better picture of Jordan. Sorry, buddy. But he's in the Houston area. So he was coming in to be with Randy for the next 2 weeks while I was leaving. And so we overlapped for a couple of days. Jordan taught here, I taught here, and we ran into these guys. Bahiru and Shala are two men that this congregation supports. And then Solomon is Chala's son, who does some translation work for us. He's going to college right now. Great young man. High hopes for him. So the area that they work in is this Bereyu area. And if you can see that main part of the city there is all Addis Ababa. What you can't see is this dotted line that separates the Amhara area from the Oromo area. And Oromo actually wraps around the whole capital area. So this area that I've been talking about with this political unrest and criminality, all of that stuff is happening right outside the city. And it's the tribe is Oromo, but now it's shifted into more criminal activity than political unrest at this point. So there's some kidnap and ransom stuff that's happening out there. And so Chala's dad was kidnapped earlier this year. And they were able to ransom him and get him back. But that's just some of the stuff that these people deal with just on a regular basis. So again, that's in that Bereyu area. Now, I got sent this picture about a week and a half after I left. Randy and Jordan ended up going out to Bereyu and teaching there, and 9 people were baptized in that area. And Chala and Bahiru have just been really active over there. There's another guy named Madassa. They're all just, those 2 churches are really strong and getting stronger. Super exciting. Back at the hotel, this is all, again, still the day I'm leaving. Elias brought his kids by. There's his twins are the oldest, and then those are 2 younger kids. And then get back to the airport at 1:30 a.m. That's just when I arrive in the country is the middle of the night. When I leave the country is the middle of the night. I don't know why. It just ends up being that way. So from the moment I got to the airport to the moment I got home was 32 hours. It was a long, long travel. Especially with my stomach messed up, which it was because of that honeycomb. Although I will tell you, I will do that honeycomb all over again if I get the chance to. It was awesome, but it did make for a rough ride home. So this is the area that we operated within, just within this 2.5 weeks. Kind of moments of fast and furious and moments of this is too slow. But we covered a lot of area in retrospect. Talked to a lot of people. Some people have asked me, what do you need for this? Well, I don't really need a lot for this. It's just being there, being with the people, kind of keeping the consistency going. But generally, we try to keep Bibles free-flowing. So logistically, we can't bring Bibles from here to there. It's too heavy. You can't pack enough, possibly, so we buy them there. And what's more is we have limited space in the car, as you saw. So really, we set up a system, I think it's working pretty okay, where we buy Bibles on a regular basis and then have them distributed to preachers in those various areas that you see on the yellow dots. So then they give them to church members, new converts, whoever needs them, gets them, is our plan. So we're trying to keep that free-flowing. Teaching materials that they can translate, try to give that to them digitally. There's a lot of preachers to support. That is not a sustainable practice, in my opinion. They have to be able to support themselves, right? But there is this transition between, I have a full-time job, and the Lord's word needs to get preached. So how do I get from here to there? So we try to just be as judicious as possible in helping make recommendations for preacher support. Audio Bibles, I can talk to you more about that if you're interested in helping me with those. They're about $70 a piece, and they speak the Bible in these people's languages, most of them. Oromo and Amharic are 2 dependable translations that I can get. And then one-time needs, like the medical needs that I was talking about. Those are typically, if you guys give me money and you're like, here, just make sure this goes to a good cause when you get over there. That's what I'm looking for, is those one-time needs. Try to vet them out as much as possible. But if it's a legitimate need, I'm going to try to help them with that money. And then water projects. This is a new thing for us. We've just, I say us, it's just me and whoever wants to help, and I was going to say, there's just so much need, How do you help? I don't know. You just do what you can. So prayers. Not prayers, if I may be so bold, not prayers that their lives will improve, that they will find more money. That's not the thing that is going to improve their lives. Honestly, this is access to truth. That's the deal. I thought I was going to make it through to the end. I was doing good. I was on a ride there. I'm blessed to be able to go there. I'm blessed to be able to spend the time with these people that I do. To say that it changes your perspective is an understatement, right? And I think you can sense that just seeing the pictures, but being there and interacting with these people, it's great. It's amazing. They're people just like you and me with less distractions. And I will tell you, they have a hunger for the word that we should have. They're willing to be inconvenienced. In fact, they're willing to actively suffer on behalf of the truth. It's encouraging. It's real to them. It should be real to us. If you're in the audience today and you're thinking, I need to do something, you're probably right. God calls us to change. He doesn't call us to listen and not do anything about that, right? He calls us to change. If you haven't been baptized into Christ, that's the first step. You need to put him on in burial of baptism. Why? Because he commanded us to do so. Why? Because it saves us. Why? Because he said so. He's going to give you the gift of salvation if you'll let him. Won't you let him? Come as we stand and sing.